Hey, so this is the Ribbon Drive primer.
If living is a highway, then heaven is a bus stop. Been waiting for a minute there, but has it been forever? 'Cause dying don't agree with me, no. Dying don't agree with me, no. All you bored girls, come with me, we're going home.
What we're going to try to do for games that we play fairly often, like Ribbon Drive and Fiasco, and other games that start to come up, is make little primer episodes so that we don't have to describe how the game is played every time, so that you can just pop in, listen to these short little episodes, and kind of get where we derive the gaming from and how the game works. So Ribbon Drive is designed by Avery McDonaldo, and you can purchase it at burieditwithoutceremony.com. There's a few great games from her. It's a pretty short booklet, and it's very simple. The course of the game is to explore discussion about the future. The setup is every game is a road trip of some sort, whether it's in a spaceship or a van or a bunch of different cars. You're all on a road trip together, or I guess you could do it on a train. But the idea being that you are traveling somewhere for a purpose, and each of your characters have a different future that may or may not rely on the goal of the trip itself. To set up the game, everyone makes a mixtape, 45 to 70 minutes long, depending on how long you guys want to play. And then you go to the table with those mixtapes and you roll a die or determine randomly whose mixtape you want to start with. And you try to find the lyrics for that song. So some people can read the lyrics as you listen. And then you all listen quietly to the first track, pause the mixtape, and then you start to discuss based on the feelings that the lyrics give you or ideas that you get, any emotional triggers you have or any sort of story ideas that come to you, you throw that out to the table, and as a group you determine, based on that first track, what is your road trip about. And you roughly start to sort out who you are as characters within this road trip. Once you've determined the details of your story and roughly who your characters are very loosely, then you listen to the second track, and that really determines who your characters are. You listen in silence, read along with the lyrics. Everyone sort of thinks about who their characters are, and you can discuss as a group how they all fit together, if they fit together. And you give each character two futures. You want to find something that it may be attainable and the other one can be a little bit loftier, but your goal is to only refer in the story to those futures when you're talking about what's to come. So you don't want to say, hey, when are we going to get to Chicago? If that's not in your future. What you want to discuss is, hey, I've always wanted to go to Wrigley Field, if that's one of your futures. So you would discuss the context of what is Wrigley Field. Or having listened to that track and you now derive who your characters are, you also give them sort of personality traits. And what you're going to do with those in the course of the game is sort of activate them in certain tales. So if you're in the example given is if you're in line in a grocery store and you have issues with crowds, that's your trait, issues with crowds. You could activate that when you're in a crowded grocery store. And then later, when there may be an event that requires you overcoming trouble with crowds, like getting through a crowd, or that puts your characters or the road trip in danger because of some sort of like crowd situation, a riot, a mob, whatever it may be, then you could use that trait that you've activated by crossing it off and overcome that obstacle, using it as sort of a way to drive your story with something your character has in their arsenal. And those are pretty open and loose. So having derived your story and what your road trip is, and having derived what your characters are, you sort of talk it through with the group, and then boom, hit play on the playlist, starting with the third track, and whoever has an idea for a story goes for it. And they just start telling their scene and everyone sort of works within that scene. It doesn't have to be the length of the song. It can be sort of informed by the song that's playing. The tone should be. You should be very aware of that. But for the most part, you're all just interacting with each other and trying to figure out where this scene is going. And you can jump through time. And again, you want to explore the futures for your characters. Now, you continue to listen to all the soundtrack. When you run out of a track, you stop playing, you queue up the new mixtape, and you listen to the first track in silence until you all have an impression of what the song is, and till someone can say, okay, cool, that's the story. I'm going to tell this scene. I have an idea. So you sort of give a little bit of breathing room when the next tape starts, and off you go, because it can shift the tone of the story and push you guys in a new direction. And you do that until you run out of mixtape or until you run out of story to tell. You know, it can lead to a pretty long game if you have like 3 or 4 90-minute soundtracks. So you can kind of use 1 or 2. We try to use 2, and they'll be fairly long mixtapes. But there's sort of open rules in that. Now, the way the game, quote, ends is that everyone on the road trip has sort of fulfilled their futures, but there may be a character who cannot fulfill their future. If there's a character who cannot fulfill one or both of their futures and everyone else has fulfilled their futures, then that character becomes the protagonist and you start to wrap it up with a final scene. So that's the character who isn't moving forward and really isn't on the same trip with everyone else, or everyone else has stopped moving forward and they're the one moving forward alone, sort of. It's basically they become the clear focus and center of this whole tale. So you've all sort of started as a group on equal footing, and as you develop and evolve, everyone sort of checks their list, and it's the last person who, as the audience, we can look at and go, this person their tale's going to go on, and we know that they're still searching, or their tale is ending because they'll never find fulfillment, but that makes them the sort of protagonist in that they may be the biggest, the most important, in quotes, character in this story. So that's Ribbon Drive. Again, very open, very loose game, but a lot of fun, and I definitely recommend checking it out. Again, it's Avery McDonaldo at buriedwithoutceremony.com. Thanks, everybody, for listening to this Ribbon Drive primer. We're going to try to do these for games that we're going to play regularly, and they're not so much a learn to play as much as giving you some background on what the game is so that we don't have to describe how the game runs every single time we record it, and so that you don't have to listen to us describe it every single time you want to listen to one of our episodes using one of these games.
If living is a highway, then heaven is a bus stop.